Hey, welcome to Fix It Tony. Today, or this particular episode, is going to be on the belt tensioner. And the belt tensioner is a very important part of the whole serpentine belt process. It helps to keep the belt tensioned and to allow the energy from the engine to transfer everywhere properly. Right now, I'm in the process of reassembling it. I had removed it, and you'll see that process. And then I'm going to show you the reassembly. Stay tuned. When you're working on your serpentine belt, you have to know how it's routed. So I had this printout of a variety of configurations, and you basically had to figure out which is my car. So you have the legend down here, and my routing ended up being this one. I had to color in number 3, which number 3 is my air compressor. And I only had 2 pulleys on this side, not the third one, because the third one is my air pump. And my air pump is not belt driven. My air pump is, I guess, electronic or something else. So it is not belt driven, so I had to pick from these two. I definitely had an air conditioner, so the dotted line indicates the air conditioner. And then I just took loads of pictures and just sort of had to figure out which one is which. You can see how that there's actually quite a bit of similarities, but definitely no idler pulley here by default. So it looks these two almost look identical. And then what I did was I took a Sharpie to emphasize the routing. I'm not going on a diagonal because I do have to connect to the air compressor. I'm going to walk you through how to take off the serpentine belt. So right there is a tensioner wheel, and I have to turn it one way or I think it's clockwise, and that'll loosen up the belt and allow me to flip it up, take this belt off. Now, interestingly, I almost feel like this belt is almost already loose. I almost can just lift this up and over. So I think I've had some problems with my belt as well. All right, so you can get one of these serpentine belt bars. I don't have a 3/8 breaker bar, but I got this thing with a 3/8 hex head, and it's a 6mm. So I'm going to make sure it's in, and then I'm going to push clockwise, okay? And then it's going to loosen up the wheel, so you sort of see what's going on down there. And then push. Oh. Okay, that's one way to do it. I broke the bolt, and my bar fell into my coolant. Oh boy. Okay. Actually, should have been, instead of putting the breaker bar on this big bolt here, I put it on the pulley and I broke the bolt. So that was unfortunate. Interestingly, so this car does have a strut. I don't know if you can see it. There is a strut here, and then there is this adjusting bolt here for the tension. So that's the part that I showed you in the beginning. So the unfortunate thing that happened was there was a bracket. So there's a bracket that you have to disconnect as part of removing this power steering pump. So I removed the bracket, and that bracket had a large bolt that went through the bracket and through this into my engine block, and the bolt was broken. I actually discovered that bolt was broken, but I do have to now remove a broken bolt from inside my engine block, and I'm going to show that in a subsequent step. The other thing I had to remove was this pipe. So this pipe connects underneath here, connects right here, connects right here. There's an O-ring, one hex bolt you got to remove, and then you have to wiggle this loose. But before you do that, you have to remember you got to move that out of the way. So there, right here, there's a small bolt that is a bracket, and it's right there. So it's right there. It's a tricky son of a gun to get to. Because I'm working with my fan clutch and fan blades still attached, it's a lot of nitpicky small hex key, wiggle it back and forth, and then eventually I transfer to a longer one with a ball tip so you can kind of get around. So yeah, you'll be fiddling with that in order to get this free and move it out of the way. But it was important, even to change this strut here. See this strut right here? Even to change that, you have to remove the bracket because the bracket was covering that bottom bolt. So even though there were other videos showing that you didn't have to remove a lot of stuff or to the tensioner, in this model, W124, W202, early build, January build, 1994, this definitely had the requirement to remove that. So just be careful about keeping track of what bolts go where. Mark it, label it. I'm going to show you what I did over here because I didn't want to lose track of what I'm taking apart. You know, so I have this craft paper on this table, and basically, you know, I'm labeling coolant pump pulley. Those are the nuts for it. Power steering pulley. This is the actual orientation, that kind of bump facing out. Coolant pipe, coolant pipe to the pump. That's this that one hex head. Here's that little coolant pipe to the bracket, to the coolant line. That's that little one that I was telling you about, futzing with a short Allen key and then a longer one with the ball tip. Power steering pump, that's the back of the pump, and there's an upper and a lower. They're different lengths, so be mindful of that. Power steering pump, there's the bushing, and you have to run that through. This is the bolt that I have to buy a new one. That's broke. I'm really bummed out about that. This is the bracket that I had to put back, and these are my coolant hoses. I actually did buy new hoses, and I'm going to replace them too. So that's how I keep myself organized during this pretty big job. To remove the tensioner apparatus, I'm grabbing it from this strut here. I'm pulling the whole contraption out. This is the tensioning arm. Arms are going to be in this next Fix It Tony video.
All right. You want to see it welded on a glob?
Well, yeah, just welded a glob. We tried various nuts. We tried even welding the bolt on. Just access was tough to get all the way around, but just get a big glob so you can get some teeth on it. There it is.
We got it.
Take a look at this puppy. Man, oh man. All right, so something to keep in mind. I'm using this service manual as a reference, and I'm also using a schematic diagram like this as a reference to determine all of the parts and the order of assembly back in, including in here will be the tightening torques. So in general, all of these little bolts, this one, and that one are going to be 21 Newton meters. Same with the ones back here. This big honkin' bolt number A16, I think. That's the big one. That's going to require, I think, a 75 Newton meter tightening torque. Yeah. So tightening torques, bolts of the belt pulleys of the fan clutch. So that's 15. bolts of the belt pulley. You can probably read this quicker than I can read it. So the big bolt is 75 Newton meters and 21 for struts and brackets. And of course smaller torques to the to attach the pulleys to the pumps. What else do I need to show you from here? Oh yeah, just to keep in mind, those two pulleys, they look similar, but they are different. So you're going to have to be careful which ones you put where, because there's a subtle difference in the offset. Even though they might look completely different, they do have different part numbers. So be careful of that. All right, so one of the things that I noticed during this whole process is you'll watch other videos on the internet and you're going to come across people showing you how they remove the serpentine belt. Those are assuming they have this particular type of tensioning device with a built-in tension or absorber and spring loaded, where you can attach a bolt, see, like this, attach a bolt and loosen it. My car, my C280 W202, completely different. It has a manual tightening and loosening component that does all of the loosening and the tightening and the adjusting of the belt tension. It's critical that you don't apply any torque to this pulley or to this main bolt as part of any loosening attempts, because you will definitely screw up. You'll either break a bolt, break a pulley, or just not be able to get the belt loosened. There is a sequence. If you're going to loosen the belt, you're going to have to take this big bolt and you're going to have to loosen it one turn so that this whole mechanism turns. You're sort of loosening it. Then you're going to take this and you're going to start loosening this to loosen the belt. And all the more reason why there is this plastic arrow indicator and this scale here that tells you the degree of tension, high tension to no tension. And I'll sort of walk you through that. Other thing to keep in mind is when you are reattaching or putting in a new one of these units, you're going to see here that this side looks different than this side. See how this is smooth and this side has a small little step right here? That's because this face goes against here, because if you look real close, you'll see the little step here. So this little inset here connects there. And you're going to be doing it such that the angle of the bracket, the pivot point is, I guess if you're on the front face, so if you're on the front face, it's going to be to the left, and then this is going to be this way. So then as you are tightening this and loosening this, this will go like this, pivot like that, or like that. And each time that happens, you're either tightening or loosening the belt. So you can kind of see what that motion is going to be like once this whole contraption becomes out of sight. So the sequence of installation is basically from right to left. This bracket goes in, then this goes in, then this goes in, then this goes in, and this big monster bolt goes through everything into that hole. All right, just to give you a lay of the land on how this is going to go. This is the old bolt that was broken. This is an 8.8 hardness bolt. I have no idea how it broke. It could have been me not realizing that I was watching the wrong YouTube video on how to loosen this process, but I learned a lot. So that's why I'm spending more time on this video emphasizing that there is an important difference. So this was an 8.8 hardness. I ended up going with a 12.9 hardness on this particular bolt. Same size, but significantly harder. I don't want anything to happen in terms of breaking a bolt, because that was a bear. Now, I thought this had broken off over the years and I had lost it, and I had found it. So I decided, well, I'll go order one. So I ordered a new one off eBay, and this came from Athens, Greece. And but I did find it in the coolant, but I'm going to use a new one. So the first thing that I need to do is, so I saw this on someone else's YouTube channel, so I just basically copied it, so credit goes elsewhere. So this tensioner has these markings. This is the loosest and this is the tightest. So when we put this indicator arrow, we have to put it such that in this sort of resting state, it's going to be right at that, there, right at that low mark. And then you're gonna carefully press this on. You'll notice that there's little teeth right here. See that? Those little teeth. And you'll notice on here, there's little ribs, knurling. Not knurling, but little ribs. So the teeth engage in that rib. So when this whole center part turns, it's going to turn and the arrow is going to follow with it, and it'll create an indicator on tension. This is maximum. If you're past maximum, then this thing is bad. If you're over here, this is where you start. So the top view will look like that. I think this is it. And then this is, the strut is kind of loose, so I can move it. Now what I have to do, per the instructions, is they want me to use some sort of sealant. So I'm going to use this Ultra Copper Permatex gasket maker, and I'm going to stick it. They want me to put the gasket maker on this surface here, so it's on the back side of the bracket and then on the front side of the bracket. So before I do that though, I'm going to dry fit. So what I'm going to do is, see this bottom sleeve? That's to the bottom of the power steering pump. I'm going to put a bolt in there just to locate it for now. Let's see if I can do that. All right, so I have to get a new bolt because the old one somehow had a big gouge and damaged threads. So I did dry fit this. Let's see. I'm not going to put this in just yet. So clearly I am learning as I go along. So I didn't tighten this all the way because I gotta find a way to get this in there. Boy, that shock absorber sagged down. Boy, that does not look right. But let's take a look-see. So now the question is, should I remove the pins so I can get that in? I think I might have to. So now that sagged and that pushed that down all the way, so I gotta undo that one. All right. This is real putsy, man. Oh, and then this thing slipped out. I have no idea how that did. So clearly I'm just gonna be putzing with this to try to get the holes to line up. So the question is, you know, which way should it be? Should it look like this or should it look like this? Okay. Now, when you're fiddling with this, you're going to soon realize there's really only one good way, and that way is like this. So however the tensioner is turned, you're going to want this to kind of go in. So it might look like this. It's going to be sort of a little funky, right? And once you put this on the shaft of this tensioner, you're going to realize that this tensioner is going to have a very awkward position in relation to everything else. And what that means is you can't line up the bolt. Now, the other thing I realized is this bolt you have the bolt and the washer in this bracket, you have to put on first. If you just try to put this in and then there's not enough room. Basically, there's not enough room for the length of the bolt between the radiator to get it into the hole. So you actually have to put the bolt, the washer, and the bracket in the hole of the tensioner first. And what's good is if this bolt does slide all the way out, you're not going to drop it because it's going to hit the radiator. So then you're going to be basically fishing the bolt through this tensioner, right? So now you got to try to get this tensioner to kind of engage. And you really are only able to do that as you begin to turn this nut. So as you turn this left and it draws down, it's going to change the position of this piece down here ever so slightly, and you're going to have to just wait for it to engage. And then it's going to be clicked in. And once you have that clicked in, you're going to feed the bolt through some more, and then you're going to realize the bolt does not necessarily line up with the plate and then the mounting hole. So then you're going to have to begin to turn this left again to draw the bolt up to basically give it so that you have complete freedom to slide the bolt through the hole. It is a nuisance. I needed to get really two hands in there, get really over it, so I couldn't show you with the camera, but I'm kind of telling you. You can kind of see how it's turned, right? This is the pivot point back there, and then it finally sort of found its way. And you can see that my finger's in the way. So these holes don't line up yet. So I'm gonna turn left. There, you can see how by turning this, you have to kind of fiddle fart so that you get this loose and you get that to engage with the hole. So the next step is this silly shock absorber kept getting in the way, and now I could pull it up. So if I pull this up, you know, that's gonna pull. My arrow is still pointing that way, so I didn't pop that off. So now I have to bring that up and lock that in place. And then this bracket hopefully will still fit. And then hopefully this hole will line up with that hole. You saw that I took off my gloves. Sometimes I can work with the gloves, sometimes I can't. Okay, so it's going in with my finger. Can't complain. I have to put sealant on that, and I have to clean it first. We'll have to move this up out of the way. Should be able to get this sucker in. Okay. The torque for this bracket is also 21. So now we got Loctite. Where is it? There. Alright, and basically you have to support the pump. The pump is actually hanging, it's not sitting on anything. So I'm just gonna, I don't have to have you watch me struggle, but I gotta fish for that hole. Then this large center bolt, it requires a 75 Newton meter torque setting. So what I did was I tightened, now even though it's set to minimum here, which is fine, and this is loose here, that's fine. There's no tension on this. That's exactly what it should be. I then tightened this center bolt to 75 Newton meters. I wanted to know where that tightening point is. Then I loosened it by like a turn and a half maybe. I can't do it with my fingers. I think I did a turn and a half. Now let's pretend the belt is on, okay? The only way you can adjust the belt and tightening it is you have to loosen that large bolt, right? A turn and a half. And then you have to now I'm turning right, and then watch the gauge. You see that needle? See that pointer? See how it's moving? See that? It's moving. That means I'm adjusting the tension on this pulley. I'm doing something to it, but I'm making it tighter, right? So if the belt was on, I'd be watching this until it gets to about 50%, and then that'd be my target stopping point, and then I check the tension of the belt. So the reverse, now remember the reverse is true. Before you loosen that nut, you have to loosen this nut first by a turn and a half or 2 turns. Because if you tried loosening this while that's reefed on 75 Newton meters, you're probably going to strip or break this bar. Okay, so this particular belt tensioner setup requires manual loosening. There's no torquing of any pulleys like you see on the other YouTube videos. Please don't do that. Okay, I got my paper here in front, and it is a lot easier not having the silly fan on. So I got that spot on. It's in the groove. Yep, it's in the groove, make sure. Good. Let's see if I can show you what I'm doing. All right. So this right here, this is the belt. And I gotta make sure it's all lined up. So this is now getting it on the alternator. There. All right. So the belt is on the alternator. The belt is on this sort of just a regular pulley that brings it across the top, just like that, not touching the fan clutch pulley. And then it's hitting the coolant pump, power steering pump, and the AC. So that's that. Power steering pump and the AC one down there. Then it comes back up around the crankshaft, and then it goes underneath the pulley, the tension pulley, and then it goes up on top of this. So we're all set. And now what we're going to do next is you can see now that the pulley indicator has probably shifted a little bit away from that red line. Okay, but now remember, if I can still turn this all the way around, then this is not tight enough. So a quick cheat on a serpentine belt tension check is all you gotta do is twist it. You should be able to twist it no more than I think 80 degrees, 90 degrees, easy. See, I can do this easy. I can go all the way over. So I know this needs to get tightened. So I tightened, let me see that bolt right there? I tightened that one to 73.4 Newton meters. The spec says 75, but man, it was making some funky noises and my torque wrench was really working hard, so I'm leaving it at 73.4. All right, so that is the assembly, and then basically the removal is loosening up that bolt and to the point where that indicator arrow is back down to that line on the right side, and that belt comes off easily. Now remember, if you really can take off this fan and you have all the tools, the fan blade and the fan clutch, I would. Certainly made life a whole lot easier. And then now it's just a matter of putting things back together again. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful with some tips and tricks. And have a great day. Bye.